So today we wanted to kind of cover Call Assist, and one of the first add-ons that we were added to Minute, and talk you through a little bit why we uh, chose to add this service, and also how it works, and then answer any questions. And Richard has been a part of helping us test this service when we were building it out and providing valuable feedback to that. My name is Marcus. I'm one of the co-founders of Minute. My background is in computer science, so I spent a lot of time in the beginning of the company's history working on our backend, building out a lot of the services that we use today and have. Then for a long time spent more time figuring out how to actually scale the company, more so than the service itself. And as of a year ago, back in a product capacity, working on anything that is sort of upsell related, add-on related, to make sure that how can we help you guys sort of with more parts of the journey, and sort of really listen to those needs that you might have when you face guests in your day-to-day hosting. And together with us today also Richard has been a customer for a long time with Minute and has been a significant help when developing Call Assist. Richard, why don't you also give a little bit of background on sort of who you are and what type of properties that you manage and where you're located also maybe.
Okay. So my name's Richard. I'm based in York, in the UK, and that's it's a historic city that has lots of tourists visiting it. I'm actually a pharmacist, and I run a group of pharmacies in the city. So I have 3 holiday lets in York, but it's not my main focus. My main focus is my pharmacies and my vaccination centres and whatnot. So the reason why I kind of turned to Minute was that I wanted some way of making the management of the properties easier. So what I haven't done is I haven't passed all the properties over to a property management company, because I wanted to be more engaged with my guests, so that I had some better control and management of them, so that they wouldn't upset my neighbours, because one of the holiday lets is where I previously used to live. And using Minute just seemed like a good way to automate the management of the guests. And you know, the 2 main things for me is, one, that it obviously helps to manage the situation by making guests aware if they're making too much noise, because some guests genuinely don't realize how much noise they're making when they get together as a bit of a group or family, get back together and a little bit excited. But secondly, it's also proven quite helpful to just keep a record of noise that has been made by guests, because some of my neighbours have made complaints about noisy groups in the house when actually there's been nobody in the house. Or you know, groups making a noise at a certain time when actually they've been out in the city centre. So it's quite useful to have a record to look back on as well, to kind of prove to people that your guests have been well behaved.
Yeah. And it's safe to say that your properties are a little bit bigger. They can sleep quite a few people, if I understood it correctly, right?
Yeah, well, I've got so the 3 of them, and they sleep. One sleeps 6, one sleeps up to 6, one sleeps up to 10, and one can sleep up to 16. So there's 3 different kind of sizes there for 3 different groups. And you know, the groups, they're often actually multi-generational family groups, and sometimes they're work colleagues coming for a conference or something, or for a university. There's 2 universities in York. So there's often people visiting for delegations there, and then sometimes it's just groups of friends, either a university reunion kind of event. So it is still useful when, you know, you do find that when people get together after not seeing each other for a while, when they first meet up, they might be a little bit excited, and that may generate more noise than would normally be. So the Minute's quite useful of letting people know quickly that they are could potentially be causing a disturbance.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good also segue into sort of why we build Call Assist and sort of what we're trying to do at Minute. I mean, most of you, I guess, are somewhat familiar already with the service that we provide. We build ultimately a hardware sensor that on top of that, we can then help identify when guests are too noisy. On behalf of hosts, we can inform directly, communicate with guests through automated messaging to let them know that it's been too noisy. And there's a sequence to that as well, so you can become more firm in your messaging when noise persists over a longer time. We have several integrations to help facilitate this as well. Airbnb is one of the bigger one. Of course, there we can send messages also through the Airbnb app, which can really also help keep a record together with Airbnb if there is a complaint or if there is a dispute between the guest and the host, so that Airbnb knows what's been said and when things were communicated and not. One of the things we did a couple of years ago together with Airbnb was actually run a study to really understand like how efficient we are at mitigating the noise issues when they arise. And in that study, we found that 94% of the issues were solved within 15 minutes, which is great. I think it sort of helps a lot. But when we started looking at this and we started talking to people and customers that were using it, one thing that we heard kind of over and over again was like, okay, well, what if it doesn't solve it in those 15 minutes? And what can we do more there? And the other part, of course, we're like operating in the hospitality industry. It's very much a people industry. We want to make sure that we take care of the guests, different needs in different locations. So we also wanted to find a way to for those hosts who wanted a more human element involved, not just automated messaging and sort of maybe a more clear feedback loop. Okay, how can we facilitate that? Which is sort of the route to how Call Assist came about. So with Call Assist, we essentially connect and can connect directly to a guest through trained operators. So we have people speaking French and English, and they're available 24/7 and can call guests wherever they are in the world. We know now that can also help build like a lot of confidence towards owners. So Richard, you manage your own properties, but there's a lot of cases where there are property managers buying their services, buying services from Minut, and then sort of to differentiate themselves from other property managers, like sort of build on the technology and the service that we provide. And so having this solution in their pocket also helps them build more transparency and sort of confidence towards the owners that own the different properties. Ultimately, we want to help prevent complaints from neighbors so that property managers can keep running their business, keep complying with local regulations. I know there's a lot of talk in New York as well about regulations and compliance. We've seen it in many cities across the world. Some places in the US now also requiring you to have someone to be able to answer or call guests within 30 minutes. So fairly strict regulations coming into place in some cities. And so Call Assist we try to combine all of that to make sure that we can respond, we can help hosts respond quickly at any point during the day to these issues. So how it works, it's really simple. If you've used Minut before, you're kind of already used to the detection. So when noise is detected, you get notified as a property manager. If you have guests added or integrated through one of the property management systems, then we can also communicate directly with the guest on your behalf through these automated messages. If that noise persists over time, where Call Assist comes into play is if they haven't responded and the noise still hasn't gone down, we'll actually start trying to call them. We'll do that multiple times to make sure that they just don't ignore the first phone call and so on. So if they don't pick up, we're going to try again and again. Once the operator spoken to the guest, we're going to compile a short report, what was said, and to kind of summarize that and send that also, so you have that report for if there would be something that you would need to follow up on or dispute later down the line. That's really Call Assist kind of in a nutshell. So also happy to take questions on how that works, how it works. And also maybe here, Richard, I know you now tried our first early version since last summer sometime. So it'd be interesting to hear your comments and thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, so as an additional add-on, I think that I guess the most important thing is that what I want to do is I want to run the business smoothly, and I don't want my neighbours to be disturbed. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that I don't want them to be disturbed and get upset with me. And secondly, I don't want to risk my business. And if a noise situation escalates and neighbours become upset and neighbours complain to the local regulators or council, then potentially, the local council could take action and could get you closed down from operating your hold-a-let. So the adding on Call Assist just puts an extra level of protection there for both the neighbours and for yourself and your business. So it was a bit of a no-brainer really to add it on, because I know there's a cost to it, but actually the cost to it compared to a single weekend booking is negligible. When you think about what you're actually doing is trying to protect your income for the next number of years, then it's definitely worth the investment.
What does your tech stack look like? Actually, be curious to learn myself as well.
What does my
tech stack look like? How do you use a property management system, or do you get everything through Airbnb? What does your kind of system?
No, I use so Airbnb. All the bookings come through Airbnb. So and I have instant booking switched off, so that I get to have a conversation with the guest before booking, just to make sure that they're the right kind of guests for the properties. The properties are in residential areas.
Do you feel that affects the booking rates and so on, or how's that been for you?
It does affect booking rates, because I have instant booking switched off, so I'm going to lose people that just want to book instantly. And then when the actual booking requests come through, I have a conversation with them and say, tell me about your group and your trip to York. And if they come and say, it's grandma's 80th birthday and we haven't seen it because of COVID, and we're coming together as a family and we're going to be going out to restaurants, and she's looking forward to seeing her grandkids and all the rest of it. And I say, well, we've got neighbours. And I said, don't worry about that. We'll be really quiet. We're a family group. That's great. I know that's going to be good. Other situations, I get groups coming and they say, where we're coming for a pre-wedding get together, and we're going to be doing these activities and we're going to have a party in the house. And then that's when you say, well, that's not allowed, so this is in residential area. It's not suitable. So I do lose a good number of bookings because I've got instant booking switched off, and because I have those conversations with guests beforehand. But it's better to lose one of those bookings than have all the grief
and ruin it
that follows it. Yeah. So I'd rather have a low occupancy rate of good guests than actually have a high occupancy rate and not be able to control the guests as such.
Have you, before you had found Minut, have you had issues with noisy guests, and how have you dealt with them when that happened, if so?
So yes, I have in the past, and how that's been dealt with previously is that the neighbours would ring. All the neighbours have my mobile phone number. They ring me or text me, and then I then contact the guest or go down to the house to visit the guest to talk to them about it. Obviously, since I've had Minute. I've not that. It's just that's taken all that out. All that it's saved me hours of all that time that I was having to manually do that. I can now relax when I've got guests in rather than be worried about what was whether I was going to have to go and visit the house or whether I was going to ring them up when it almost felt like when I had guests in I was still at work. But now I've got Minute doing the monitoring and the contacting the guests, and the way that I set it up, I've got it set up so that it actually sends a Airbnb message and a SMS message. So they get the two messages, so that that if for some reason there's not a good mobile signal but they've got Wi-Fi in the house, and they get the Airbnb message. So I've got kind of both avenues covered. And if they ignore the first message and they get a second or a third message, then what I do is I ring Airbnb and I ask Airbnb to contact the guests, and Airbnb do contact the guests, and they say to them, if this happens again, we're going to terminate the stay. And that always sorts things out. If it gets to the point where you get Airbnb involved, and the good thing about the Minute correspondence on Airbnb is the proof is there. The proof is there that they've had the first, the second, or hopefully not the third notification. But it means that then that when they talk to the guests, there's no disputing that they've been notified 2 or 3 times. So that work that's it's really good as a evidence form for the hosts as well.
And I can add to that also, like when Call Assist is into play here, which is also like really on the third warning, the operator there will also compile and sort of take notes of what the guests are saying. So if they don't, for some reason, don't comply, or they don't want to, like, hey, we're going to have a party, we don't care, all that information is also transcribed and sent to the host. So that can also be used in conversations, for instance, with Airbnb or follow up afterwards with the guest.
Airbnb do take this really seriously, and but as in most cases, what they want is they want evidence, and this provides the evidence. What I actually do is if I have what's looking like a problem and I have 2 activations or I get 3 activations, then it quietens down. What I actually do is I actually screenshot the Minute graph, and then I send that to the guest so the guest can see it, but also the Airbnb
gets it in the same conversation
as well, so they can see that there's no dispute about the fact that the activations went off and how long it went on for or whatever. So that and that that usually find that on the second, if that happens on one night, then for the rest of the stay, the group they're like church mice.
Yeah. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. I know there's been a lot of talk in York around like sort of regulations coming into play and so on. Do you know what's happening, and sort of how have you been able to respond? Can you talk a little bit like how you've been able to respond to those?
Well, there's a couple of things happening in the UK that they're bringing in a registration scheme, so at the moment the council don't actually know where all the properties are that are rental properties, so they're bringing in a regulation scheme. But they're also wanting just to make sure that the properties and are not disturbing neighbours, and whilst at the moment there isn't a requirement to have any noise monitoring in place, I've chosen to do that so that it helps me better manage my holiday lets. So I've got the things that I do may be different to other people, is that I don't have instant booking switched on. I have a conversation with people before they book it to make sure they understand to find out what about their group and their visit. I have a conversation with them about the fact it's a residential area. I've got CCTV outside the premises, both the front and the back. I've got Minute inside the premises and outside the premises, so that if a group's either been noisy inside the premises or in the back garden, that would detect it. And then we also meet and greet all the groups as they arrive as well. So what we don't do is if you think the contrast to that would be somebody who accepted instant booking and just sent somebody a key safe code and that was it, then the way that we engage with our guests is totally different, and that makes my guests less of a problem than guests in other parts of the city where the council have taken action against other properties, and they have successfully closed them down. And when that's happened, the hosts haven't really had a leg to stand on in terms of appealing against it, because they've been badly managing the guests, kind of thing. So yeah,
it is a challenge, and I think that's, I mean, a lot of what you're saying. I mean, I hope that maybe one day you can come to the point, or we can help you come to the point where you can turn on instant booking and still be confident that you get the right guests and sort of that that they behave. And I think that's what we're striving to accomplish, of course, to help host all around.
Yeah.
Right. If there are any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. We have a couple more minutes before we round off. I'm gonna dare to ask this question because I love getting feedback from our actual customers too. Richard, what is something we could do even better at Minut that you think we should do, or we should spend time on? You have your chance now.
Yeah, I guess perhaps if there was what can be frustrating is when we get to the third notification and then it goes to call assist, and then that there's still some action being taken, but I have had one instance where it got to a third notification, and because there wasn't then a fourth notification, the guest then thought they were being quiet. So I think being able to customize the number of responses that the machine gives would be useful.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So sometimes it's a little bit of frustration that the information doesn't seem to be as live as you think it should be. So I'm not sure. Sometimes when you look at it, it says it's communicated with the device 3 minutes ago, and sometimes when you look at it, it says it's communicated with it 20 minutes ago, and I'm not sure why that. Why that's the case, because it's difficult then to tell whether that, I guess, if a group has gone quiet or whether it actually hasn't updated. I'm not sure what's going on there.
So as it's actually to make sure that the battery runs for as long as possible. But if it goes above the threshold, we'll notify you immediately.
Right.
But if everything is within limits, within bounds, then the updates are a bit more seldom, and that's just to make sure that we get the battery to run as long as possible.
Okay.
But of course, if anything happens, then we'll immediately let you know. Francisco had a question here about PMS integrations and whether we integrate with Kinea, and the answer is yes, we do. So if you're on Minut's Pro plan, you can set up the integration through the Minut web app. There are a couple of steps to follow to connect it, where you need to share credentials and authorize Minut to contact Kinea. But it's all done automatically afterwards, and then it will import guests for bookings, upcoming bookings for all your properties after you've connected them, which is also what enables sort of this automated communication to guests on your behalf, and then you can configure messaging and so on within the app as well. So the answer is yes. All right. I think we're out of time. If people on the call have any more questions, of course, we're always here. You can always reach out to hello@minut.com. I'm always available and happy to speak to customers as well. So feel free to reach out to me. Richard, thank you so much for taking the time to join today.
No problem.
I'm sure we'll be in touch soon. I actually have some more questions I want to run to you and test on.
Okay.
So I might come back to ask a few more things. But thank you all for today and have a nice evening.
Thank you.